This video is made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.
Hi there, my name is Willem and welcome to NWR's Gamescom report. I've spent all week at Gamescom trying to talk to developers, publishers, and even getting my hands on some awesome new games you can expect in the future. In this series, I'll take you along to interviews at the event. I hope you will enjoy these videos. If you are into physical game collecting, you are well aware of Limited Run Games. The company has been producing a ton of physical prints of a wide range of video games, sometimes even accompanying them with massive collector's editions. They also re-released Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, one of the worst games of all time last year, but treated it like a loving homage with an extensive documentary about the game. Now they are expanding their offerings by also releasing games in digital form alongside or after a physical print run. I talked to Jared Petty about specifically this shift and approach to releases, but also what to look for in a retro game release such as their upcoming remake of Clock Tower and the Gex trilogy scheduled for next year. So I hope you're excited to learn more about the approach that Limited Run Games takes when selecting titles to give the premium treatment. So, can you tell me a little bit about Limited Run Games? How have you guys been doing over the last, let's say, 2 years?
Limited Run Games is doing really well. We became part of the Embracer Group within that period you're talking about, or around that window. And we've been doing quite well. We've done exciting things. We've worked deals with Sega and Konami to bring some amazing games to people that wouldn't have been available in physical form otherwise, and I love that that's happened. Our collector's editions, I think, have continued to improve in many ways. Inside the company, we started our digital publishing initiative. We started Press Run, our book division around that time, produced some really fine video game books. It's a good time to be at Limited Run.
Yeah, and I think it's also a moment in time where games preservation and archival and more attention to our history as a medium is getting more and more relevant. How do you see the role of Limited Run Games in that? Because it's kind of a two-edged sword, right? On the one hand, you make limited physical products, but on the other hand, you're also like trying to protect and preserve the memory of these titles like Tomba and Gex.
Here's how I see it. Games are toys that are also art. They are both those things. Cool. And toys sometimes have a bit of disposability about them in the minds of some people, at least when they first have them. People think of a toy as a childhood thing or something that's lost or cast away. But many of us that have grown to be adults have held on to certain toys, remembered certain toys, purchased certain toys from our childhood to have them there on our shelf or even to play with them again.
Right.
And what we do at Limited Run, in one sense, touches on that. The ability to make accessible these toys that we might have laid aside before we were really ready to.
Right.
The second part of it is art. Art deserves to be protected, art deserves to be seen, art deserves to be experienced, and games are art. What we do at Limited Run by providing physical copies of games and making them more available now through digital, both, is to celebrate the art and put the art back into as many people's hands as possible. Some of that's with our carbon engine work, with taking old games that might not have had a full lease on life and giving them another shot, and with quality of life improvements that allow them to appeal to more people. Some of that's through our relationship with indie games that might not otherwise be discovered without the publishing help that we're able to give. And then some of it's just with weird, wonderful, zany things we're doing every now and then, like, why don't we make the best version of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties ever? The best version of the worst game of all time. That was fun to do. It is the best version of the most terrible game.
Right.
We put a lot of love into that. The documentary's great. So that's a story.
I kind of, to play devil's advocate, I guess, because art is, the inherent quality of art is that it's subjective, right? Everyone has another perspective on art. And I think in your specific role as well, you have to be like looking at art as both as a subjective but also an objective term. Like, what part of games history does it tell, but also what does it represent on its own, right? Like Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is a great example. It's an discarded piece of art in a sense, but it can be rediscovered in this sense. What is your curation process into saying, like, these are quote unquote art, all games are art, but these are worthwhile to give that whole, like,
well, let's talk about this from several angles, because there's a lot that goes into that internally. The first thing to remember is that we are a business and we want to keep the doors open. Therefore, one of the questions we ask when we look at a game and consider it for publication is, do we think we can sell enough of this game to pay for it?
Right.
If the answer to that question is no, then unfortunately it may be very difficult for us to make that more accessible to people through our model. And sometimes we have to do that. Another thing that we look at is passion. Our company is made up of a lot of big collector nerds. It really is, just a whole bunch of dorks. And very often somebody just waves their arms and go, we want to make that, we want to try that. And generally, if somebody asks that question in our company, the business development people will at the very least make an overture to check on the rights, to check on the holders, to see if this is something where the person who owns the right to a game we want to bring back would be interested in working with us. Sometimes the answer is no, sometimes the answer is yes. If the answer is yes, it gets really exciting because we bowl forward to create a contract that makes sure that they get some money, that we get some money, that the price is affordable, that the quality of the collector's edition, the quality of the products is up to the standard our customers deserve. When all that secret sauce gets met, that's really how the curation takes place. Passion and practicality kind of working together.
I can see that. And it's also like we're living through a pretty unprecedented time with so many mergers, acquisitions, and kind of people finding, like IP is the new gold, right, in the games industry for a lot of companies. How are you going about finding some of these rights holders? Like, where do you even start in that process?
Well, the nice thing about the video games industry is that it is small relative to most industries. Very much like Hollywood, everybody knows everybody. And so the people in our company, several of them, are so well connected that if they don't know who knows, then they know who knows who knows.
Right.
And we can start there. And there is a lot of detective work to it.
Right.
And sometimes you run down that lane and you just hit a wall. It's like, maybe nobody knows who owns this anymore. And you can't just publish a game that nobody knows who owns it, because I can think of at least one project, I don't want to say which, where a very small piece of media within one of our products was owned by someone else, a very tiny section of it. And then the rest was owned by another. And that tiny section caused us tremendous difficulty in getting the product put together. Because like, who has that? How do we contact them? How do we get them on board with this?
Yeah.
And we're talking about a few seconds of content.
Oh my God.
You know, and that happens. You have to do that sometimes. But it worked out. We got to do it.
That's really
yeah, a lot of it's detective work. A lot of it is humility. The fortunate thing about games is that despite the cynicism that you sometimes hear about it, and you do meet cynical people in games, most of the people I meet in this industry want to make good stuff happen and want people to be able to play. So when we go to potential partners and approach them with project ideas, you'd be amazed how often they're like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. And I'm not just talking about individuals or small businesses. You go to big like rights holders or big corporations, and very often you'll find somebody inside there's like, oh hell yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
They love the idea because they collect and they want to make the same thing happen.
Or even in certain cases where you make them aware of what they have maybe, and then look at how can we make this the coolest thing you've ever seen, or like improve on that.
Oh yeah, the process for putting together a collector's edition, for example, literally the whole company gets involved. Sometimes dozens, hundreds of ideas for things that ought to go in the box, and then a filtering process where, like, you know, what would that look like? Is it appropriate? How much would it cost? Can we build it? Would the rights holder approve it? And we go through and gradually the list pares down until you get the items that end up in the box. But the passion of the people coming in and just being like, oh man, this has got to be there. This has got to be there. And you get a lot of that. And sometimes, again, the rights holder themselves will be like, this has got to be there, you know. And that's fun. I don't want to give you the idea it's always sunshine and rainbows, but it's a neat business to be in. What we do is fairly unique. And I believe we do it better than anybody in our segment of the market. I really do. And so I feel a sense of pride in a lot of the work we do.
Yeah. I want to ask about a very particular example, and that's, so I've dubbed this year unofficially my year of the CDI Zeldas. I'm a big fan of those games, like unapologetically I think there's a core of great design in, and of course you did RZ and the Jewel Faramore.
Yes.
How did you decide to put a CDI-like controller in that box, and tell me through the design take me through the design
Okay,
process.
so I wish I had more details for you. I know a little about that controller. I was on the press end, so I was handling things like, let's make sure we get this controller to these people and these people and these people. From my perspective, it was a marketing tool.
Right.
Like, that controller is a way of getting earned media.
It's
that
so
weird
absurd.
thing. But from products perspective, from production's perspective, from art's perspective, it's just like, oh my goodness, what an amazing weird thing. We have to put that in there because our audience will love it. Let's take this very good game, that's a good game.
It's great. It's really good.
And let's make it craptastic like it would have been on the CDI. And we even built like CDI controller stuff into like the Switch so that you can switch modes to like, you know, and let me tell you what, that controller, it doesn't just work on RZ. You can play Street Fighter with that controller. We've done it. And, you know, it was just a giant, a lot of times, if it's a giant joke, it's going to get some momentum inside my company.
Right.
I wish I could give you a more detailed start to finish, but unfortunately, I wasn't there for the drafting of that controller. I was working in books at that point and wasn't touching it.
Yeah, and like limited run games has really expanded their reach and their ideas of what to do. You talked a little bit about the digital side and also publishing those indie games that kind of adhere to a style that limited run embraces. Like RZ is a great example again of that. Yeah. What do you look for in developers, creators, games that fit that limited run brand? Aside from the obvious joke ones, which Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, which isn't like, that's a port or a re-release, you could also argue, but for the originals, what do you look for?
Well, one of the things we look for is IPs because people recognize them. And for us, that's a very good thing. You notice we just announced a Sonic CE, with the Dreamcast statue and everything. You know, it's people love the Sonic universe. They love the Sonic characters. They love Sonic as an idea, not just a game.
As a mascot, and you put him on top of a Dreamcast, and people have the initial like throwback to like booting a Sonic Adventure, right?
Exactly, and Sonic was designed originally to be a mascot. You know, he was literally a marketing tool as he went into his first game, and they put enormous thought into how he was physically designed. So something that works like that, where it immediately triggers people's hunger or understanding, or you know, like, oh yeah, we're into that. You know, you notice the games that I'm here showing. You know, Tomba, Gex. These are games that people remember fondly. Franchises that people remember fondly. Everybody had that Gex demo, or pardon me, that Tomba demo disc, that Tombi demo disc, and they have a fond memory of it. And so that helps us to select. We take high quality games like that from that people remember fondly and run with them. That's a big part of it. Mm-hmm. Another one, like I talked about earlier, is profitability. We like to take games that you can't necessarily make everything you want, because you go, you do your calculations, you do your figures, you test the market, and you're like, there's just not enough demand for this franchise that's very precious to me. So you see a lot of that in the decision making, and that unfortunately does cut some things out. Another thing is adjacency to a retro vibe. You talked about RZ. RZ is not a retro game, but it feels like what you
someone, right?
It feels like what you remember a retro game being like. And because we really are tied up in that kind of history arc of games, it's a lot of what we do. We do tend to lean toward that kind of indie. Celeste was a natural fit because of its throwback nature, despite the fact that Celeste is one of the most innovative modern platformers ever designed.
Yeah.
It still kind of fits that vibe, and we try to shoot for that occasionally. There's some projects in the works I can't talk about that would illustrate this reality even more. But we do look for silliness, we do look for retro adjacency, we look for practicality, can we actually produce this? And we look largely for IP.
Right.
And then those are usually, and then occasionally we'll just see something that strikes one of us as magic, and somebody will get in there and be like, look, this doesn't fit any of those, this is new, but y'all, we really need to consider making or publishing this game.
Yeah.
And that becomes a passion project. There's a lot of passion in the company, and there will be meetings, and sometimes it gets through. I have something that I'm trying to get through right now, and we can make it work.
Yeah, real cool. I have to ask, Gex, okay, it fits the IP rule, it fits everything else, it has that nostalgia era, it is a very particular vibe. What drew the team to that particular idea?
So our CEO, Josh, the founder of the company, he's a chaos monster. He just is, okay? Josh is largely responsible for the fairly madcap nature of limited run games, catalog, and approach to producing things. Gex is his jam, and Gex is his baby.
I mean, I can kind of see that.
Yeah. So Josh really, really wanted to make this happen, and he worked very, very hard too.
Can you provide a sort of timeline? Because this idea, like what you say, Josh is very passionate. He worked on this for a long time.
We've been working on this for years.
Yeah, right. Because that's how long it takes to convince the parties involved, I presume.
Yeah, we've been working on this for years.
Yep. Really cool.
Totally.
Yeah.
And Gex isn't going to be ready till at least next year.
Right.
So yeah, it's a long process. Very often sometimes we'll go in, we'll think we have it, last minute, doesn't turn out. Then a year later, it'll be like, oh wait, remember that thing? Hey, let's try again. Go back to things a lot. So you have to learn not to be precious about what happens. You really do. There's a lot of patience in our business.
Real cool. I also really like Clock Tower that you guys are doing. I'm correct, right?
Yeah, we're doing Clock Tower. We developed it in cooperation with Way Forward.
Right.
And Clock Tower. The physical purchase window just closed on that, and it should be available digitally later this year.
Right. What I find interesting about Clock Tower, especially, is it's a very cult game, right? It's a cult classic in that sense. And I guess this goes for Gex and Tomba and the other original IP that you're working on. Where do you draw the line between improving an older title, or changing things? Because you're always at a sort of crossroads between authenticity and playability, and a lot of it gets overlooked due to nostalgia, rose-tinted glasses. Do you have a clear line at limited run games for when do you change something to an original, or is it just no, it has to be preserved the way it is?
We don't have a lot of clear lines, but we do have a few. We treat each title with the idea that we want you to be able to experience it as it was, and we kind of want you to be able to experience it as you remember it, like I said earlier. Because our memories sometimes take, you play an older game, and you're like, oh, this isn't quite what. So we do try to help that process a little, but we always err on the side of the original. For example, you mentioned Clock Tower. Clock Tower contains two main modes. One mode of Clock Tower is hardcore, old school 1995 Famicom Clock Tower. The second mode does smooth the edges a little bit.
Right. Not needing to talk to every object, every character in a specific sequence, etc.
It really does help you get through it. Plus, we add other quality of life tools like rewinds and save anywheres and things like that. So what we want to do is give people the option to experience the game in its, for lack of a better term, its hardcore form.
Right.
But we also increasingly look for ways to help people that have maybe never played the game or have forgotten just how difficult it is to have a little better chance of enjoying it without reaching frustration at certain parts.
Yeah.
There's only so many times you want to fall off a cliff in a game before maybe just hitting the rewind button might be better.
Yeah, or getting, don't want to continue playing it at all because it's just too frustrating and it's not the feeling you're going for, especially new players, right, who don't bring that memory, don't bring that nostalgia. Yeah. Yeah, accommodating those folks. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really proud of what we did with Clock Tower. It's a good game. I can't wait for people to get their hands on it.
Yeah. You mentioned, we talked earlier about the digital distribution and the physical distribution. I think when I ask most people, they're thinking of the physical boxes, the collector's editions, the prints. Yeah. But you're doing the digital versions now too for certain games.
Yeah, that's my job.
What is the curation process in that sense?
Okay, so what we ask ourselves there first and foremost is, all right, here's a game that we know people are absolutely going to be after it in cartridge, disc, and collector's edition form. And that's how we make all our core traditional limited run products. Then we say, are there people out there in a significant number who want this game, who don't care about physical collection, but do have fond memories of it, or we think might discover a new game through advertising, media, etc., word of mouth, YouTube? Do we think those people are out there? And we start doing research to find out if they are. If the answer is yes, there's a significant group of people out there that would probably buy this game that would never buy the cartridge or disc, we're probably going to go forward with it digitally. Yeah. That is a business consideration, largely. It's also a business consideration that happens to have the delightful effect of increasing accessibility and helping the mission of Limited Run be forwarded, which is to make these games available to as many people as possible, as easily as possible. Digital has a lot of advantages. Limited Run's motto is forever physical. We're not changing that.
Yeah.
but digital does have advantages. It's often less expensive in terms of the upfront cost. It allows you to instantly experience the game. It allows people with consoles that don't have physical media ports, like certain PS5s, to play these games, who otherwise would simply never be able to experience them at home. Has a lot of advantages, and so we like that. And I've been very happy so far. The program's been successful, and that's been really reassuring for me.
Can you tell me something about the split you see in your user base for the people that are sticking with forever physical and people that are maybe shifting over, or do you see like a significant?
I don't think we're going to see many people shift over. I'd be very surprised. I think we got some people that are probably buying both, and I never mind that. No. If there's going to be any shift, it's people. It's the other way. It's people that are buying digitally, maybe discovering what we are and who we are. They're like, oh wait, there are people making. There's a Celeste cartridge, for my Switch. That's cool. And then, or seeing our CEs, especially. Yeah. I mean, like, whoa, and so we hope to gain customers for the physical side through our digital work a lot. I think our physical customers, we always want to bring new ones on. But the ones that we currently have, I don't think are going to make an exodus for digital. I could be wrong.
Yeah, but like you see often these photos of collectors with every Switch version of the Switch cartridge that LRG has released, and like they're so dedicated to that particular, the particular products you put out and the selections you made in that aspect.
Yeah, Limited Run really does try to. I mean, I'm so glad we were able to move from the model of, hey, we have 2,000 games, first to come, first gets them, to our current model, which is, hey, here's a pre-order window. As long as you order within this time period, we're going to get you a game. Right. And that's a much more consumer-friendly model. I feel like this is an advancement of that. We're not going to get rid of that model, but we're adding to it yet another way to play video games you love.
Yeah. You say it's a consumer advantage, but is it also a production advantage? Because you know how many copies you have to.
Oh, it's a huge production advantage.
There's two sides to it.
I mean, I can't speak exactly to production. It might actually be simpler for us to say we're just going to make 2,000 games.
I mean, the order number is
we could probably just
round it. Right?
It probably costs us a little more, but we get, I think, much more business, and it's much more fair to our customers that way. Yeah. We really don't want to write people out of what they want to have.
Exactly. I totally get that. Yeah.
I think I have most of my questions, but there's one more personal one that I really want to ask you. What is your white whale? What is the one project, the one thing that you feel like, and it doesn't have to be one that's in the works or whatever, but what is really like, that is the one, if I had full control over the rights and everything, that's the one I'm aiming for.
So I've got that one and I'm working on it.
Really good.
But I can't talk about it. But I can tell you one that no one would ever buy, so we're never going to do it.
Watch out what you say.
But seriously, if I had my choice, I don't think that the audience exists anymore for this. But just because it's my favorite game of all time, I would love to see Sid Meier's Pirates available through a limited run collector's edition. I love the idea of having the various pirate ships and maps from the game, and all. I love that kind of stuff. Yeah. Have that pirate model or something like that, and then have physical cartridges of my favorite version of the game, which is the rare coinet version, the rare version that was for the SNES. Not SNES, probably for the NES. That's my favorite version of Pirates. Oh, really? C64 Pirates is good. Apple II Pirates is okay. DOS Pirates is okay. Pirates Gold is pretty, but the rare version for NES plays the smoothest by a long shot. Yeah. It plays better than the Genesis version.
Yeah. But as you say, I can see that's a niche of a niche that people would
and
be
so
really,
it's never going to happen. But if I just had unlimited power, I'd be like, yes, we're releasing my favorite game.
How are your model works at the company indeed, for the little pirate ships?
Well, I mean, pretty neat what they do. Our art team is awesome.
Yeah, really fun.
They're incredible. And they're also great people. The art room is the most fun room in the building.
That's nice. Yeah, I mean, if you allow everyone in the company to brainstorm or at least think about what you're going to do for a joke or even for something that's much more serious, right? You take those opinions of those avid collectors who know what they want, what they would love into account. I think that's admirable trait of in the end you're a business. You have to run numbers and check everything, but keeping that atmosphere going. That sounds really healthy in that sense.
Well, ultimately, it's a wonderful job to be in. Stealing from Stephen King, if you're going to be in a business selling things, you might as well sell fun.
Good idea.
So,
awesome. Thank you for your time. It was
you.
really fun.
This video was made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Did you know that Nintendo World Report is funded directly by fans like you? When you support Nintendo World Report on Patreon, you get immediate access to multiple exclusive podcasts every month, exclusive Discord channels, an early look at select content, and more, all for as little as $1 a month. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.